Good morning. I'm Suzanne Scott, General Manager of the River Authority, and I'm very happy to be here today. Many people have mentioned the river already. I'm going to sort of talk about how this rekindled love that we have for the river based on all the investments that have been made, how can that really spark a renewed passion in Brackenridge Park. So we've been sitting here so long that we've actually added 1,000 years to how long the river and this place has been part of our world. We think it's been 12,000 years based on the data that we've gotten from the archaeology that we've done as part of the River Improvements Project. But everyone has said, and it goes without saying again, that we have a lot of evidence that we've had human habitation along this river for a very long time. Of course, we have our wonderful missions that have already been mentioned, and they would not have been here if it hadn't been for the river. And not only for the water and the acequia systems that river formed, and the fact that the water was such an important part of the life and the operation of these missions, but of course all the flora and the fauna also supported those missions and the people that lived there. We know from our early settlers that part of our heritage is the fact that the Spanish settlers developed this acequia system. They were the best engineers of their time and brought all kinds of wonderful innovations and use of the river for the purposes of running those missions and supporting life. And of course, I borrowed some of these slides from Kay Hines' presentation that she recently did to our San Antonio River Authority Board of Directors. And by the way, I think I should have two of my directors here. Jim Campbell is here. He's elected, and he represents the park, so he's very interested. And then Mike Lackey is our chair, and he's in the back. Thank y'all both for being here. That just is a testament to the fact that our leadership at the River Authority is very, very interested in what happens at Brackenridge. So this history, the Upper Labore acequia system, there's such an amazing amount of history here, as was mentioned earlier. In the process of doing work at the Whitty and with the River Improvements Project, we unearthed this dam, which is very exciting about how this system actually worked. It's celebrated at the Whitty through the new exhibits that are there. Here you see some of these features that many people that go to the park don't even understand what they are. So, I mean, I think that there is much to do about trying to really celebrate these culturally significant and historically significant aspects of our city. These things are there, and now we need to do something to make them more relevant in the park environment. And of course, as been mentioned, we can't forget the fact that we're a growing city, right? And in the 1800s, this city was growing, and the wells that were there were starting to be captured for the purposes of drinking water. And even though those springs were very vibrant at the time when the quote was said earlier on, the reality is because we pump that aquifer today, those springs will not flow to the extent that they had in the past. Many of us know that during very dry times, those springs go dry. We're fortunate for the last year or so that we've seen water coming out of the blue hole, but most of the time when we're seeing droughts, we don't see that water. So that story of the springs oftentimes is lost. You'll be up in that upper part of the park, and there won't be any water up there because the springs aren't flowing. And that's a part of our city, and it's a story that will need to be told, but I don't think we're going to stop pumping the aquifer for our drinking water purposes. Yes, we're getting off of that because of other sources that SAWS is developing, but I doubt very seriously that we'll be off the aquifer 100% anytime in our lifetime because it's too important of a water resource to serve this community. The river's also been a challenge with flooding. It's already been talked about quite a bit. We've had significant floods. 21, we had a major flood. Here's some photos that show you the impact of that. Again, our city is growing, more impervious cover, more flooding, so you can imagine what was happening even in these early years of our city. So we started to manage it through building dams. We cut off the river. We did a bypass channel. So that little loop that we all know as the Riverwalk, that straightened part was that bypass channel that was added as a response to these floods. And then the river became such a great part of our history that we know today. The WPA came in and did construction of the Riverwalk, and it was something that we even started using for celebrations in the 1940s. These old pictures are always kind of fun when you think about what we see today. on the river. And then, of course, we can't talk about the river without talking about the father of the River Walk, Mr. Hugman, and all the work that he did and his wonderful vision that was ultimately executed in the development of the River Walk. And then when the hemisphere came, and we all know the history, that really transformed the river and made it a destination for very many people. And it went through a lot of times. I mean, there's many historians in the room that can tell you that this river walk went through fits and starts for a very long time. But ultimately, as we see it today, it is a top destination for visitors, and we have now expanded it even further, which I'll talk about in a couple of minutes. But one of the things as it related then to flooding that continued to happen, our city continued to grow, more floods. It was also through an economic recession. If y'all remember 2007, 2008, it wasn't the best. What we now know as the San Antonio Channel Improvements Project. And that channelized 31 miles of the San Antonio River and tributaries for flood control purposes. The idea at the time is that was the engineering technique, get that water out of town as fast as possible. It was threatening people, it was killing people, it was causing too much property damage for us to worry about trying to manage this river in a naturalized way. We also built 2 tunnels as part of that project. 2 flood control tunnels go underneath downtown San Antonio, one on the San Antonio River and one on San Pedro Creek. It's 150 feet deep, 24 feet in diameter. You can see the mechanized boring systems that were used. These tunnels are extremely important in protecting downtown from flooding and have allowed for the museum reach to be built, and now, of course, are allowing for the San Pedro Creek project to go forward. So moving into the more modern history of the San Antonio River, we did, and was mentioned earlier, go and develop the San Antonio River Improvements Project. This was a comprehensive project. Many years and many people's thoughts and visions went into this project. We can't say that it just started in '98. It really started after the first channelization that was occurring on the river. People immediately, when the Corps was channelizing that river, many of the leaders, even today, remembered saying, wait a minute, that was not such a great idea. We took too much of the natural environment away from that river. How can we bring that back? So that started in the 70s and 80s with the River Corridor Committee, and then into the 90s with some of the projects that the city and the county funded. And then ultimately we created this River Improvements Project in 1998 to really look at 13 miles of improvements to the San Antonio River from essentially the headwaters all the way down to Mission Espada. And a lot of this was the area that had been previously channelized, which is known as the Mission Reach. And of course, what we know now today, Museum Reach, we're all standing here and seeing the benefit of that project. And then of course, it extends up to what we know as the park segment, which is up into Brackenridge Park. And there was many partners. It was public-private partnership. All the funders, Bexar County, the city, the Corps of Engineers, the San Antonio River Authority. We served as project manager, and we also do the operations and maintenance with our tax dollars of the Museum Reach and the Mission Reach. So that partnership still continues to make sure this project can have longevity. And of course, we've already mentioned the wonderful River Foundation and all the great work they're doing to support what we're doing at the River Authority, as well as adding so much value to the story and the stewardship of the river. This project would not have been possible without community partnerships. We had a very aggressive and dedicated River Oversight Committee that was chaired throughout its entire 16-year history by Irby Hightower and Lila Cockrell. And I mean, yes, please. These 2 leaders, Irby, are you here? I know Irby was there last night. I don't know if he's here. I can't see. But Irby, amazing local architect, Lila Cockrell. She is, our lovely former mayor who has just stayed involved in everything. This river project would not have been here if it had not been for these 2 people that you see on this slide. And I would say that anywhere, because they pushed through a lot of politics to make sure this project stayed in the forefront of people's minds. We went through many mayors, a couple of county judges, lots of city council people that had other different priorities, but this project stayed on the forefront because of Lila and Irby. And it's that passion that you need on these projects that go on forever. Because if you don't have consistent leadership, people change and they move on, and it gets lost in the landscape of all the politics. But it was a representation group. They had lots of advocacy. They were a strong voice, got lots of money for this project through many referendums. We can't say enough about them. But this guiding principle here I think is important. This was established in 1998 when they came together, and they stuck with this. They were representatives of the community, advocates for the river. They strived to reach consensus with themselves and within the community in support of a program of improvements for the San Antonio River that are consistent with the highest standards of technical and design criteria, respect and address the needs of all segments of the river, and improve the quality of life for all its citizens. This statement, 1998, and I would hope any of you that have gone to the museum in Mission Reach believe they met that guiding principle throughout the entire time of their service. And I can't tell you how they kept going back to that to make sure that they did what they told themselves they were going to do, and they executed. So Museum Reach, let's talk about that one. That's here, right outside the door. If you go out, if you're not from here, it's right over here. And please enjoy it. Go out there during lunch and see it. We opened it in 2009. This project, it really basically started construction in 2007, completed in 2009 on the last day of Mayor Hardberger's term, because he said this project is going to finish while I'm mayor, and it did. And we did that. We met that goal. And it was also through an economic recession. If y'all remember 2007, 2008, it wasn't the best time, but this project went forward. $72 million of public investment in this project. We've also completed some of the recent trails up at the Brackenridge Park. Didn't do as much as we hoped to do in the park, to be quite honest. Our vision for the trails and the improvements that the river improvements would have in the park were far more than what we were able to execute with the money. Sometimes projects that take a lot of time, the money that you had allocated, the money does not go as far as you were hoping it would have. So we have still more to do. We didn't meet our objectives there. Mission Reach, 8 miles of the ecosystem restoration project. Again, that channelized portion of the river, we came back and restored, completed it in 2013. The interesting thing about this project is it was a Corps of Engineers project. It was going to be completed in multiple phases over multiple years. Judge Wolf said at the time, we can't wait that long. So we decided collectively we were going to reverse roles. The River Authority took over the role of the Corps, and we executed that project. Saved $25 million and completed the project much sooner than it would have been if the federal government would have stayed in control of the execution of that project. I love the Corps of Engineers. Believe me, we have a great partnership with them, but they are strapped just like everyone else with money, and sometimes we can do it better locally, and we showed that here. Also in the bond is our improvements to Broadway. This is a huge thing now, and this goes right up the park. You know, we've got this Broadway street that many of us travel all the time, and it really is not the gateway to downtown that maybe it could be. So if you see on this dot all of those locations along Broadway that we've already invested in, the Whitty, the Botanical Gardens, the Zoo, Brackenridge Park, the Museum, all these great destinations. Now we need to link them all together. And Broadway and the vision that can be happening along Broadway can be a really great catalyst to what we're doing at Brackenridge Park. So again, you've got so much right there, and expanding the vision and connecting the dots I think would be really amazing. So I just wanted to, from everything I've sort of said here, I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of leveraging. So what have we learned from what I've just talked about for the last few minutes on the river, and how can that apply to Brackenridge Park? And much of it's already been said. But I mean, obviously if people love the river and love our creeks, they're gonna love Brackenridge Park if we talk about the importance of how that river integrates into that park. We need to really talk loudly and strongly about the stewardship and the natural and cultural assets of this park. It's a very important aspect of what we have here. We also need to build on that momentum. We have made a lot of investment in all of those cultural institutions that I just mentioned. People go there all the time. People are coming from all over the community to go to the Whitty, and even more are going to come. So how do we build on that and make those people come into the park and really excite themselves about all these other assets that are close to their one. Much more development is happening. Lone Star, there's many residential developments that are already occurring with the epicenter with CPS Energy and that property being turned over for development. Lots going on. So it has had the economic return. People are coming back. We already have had almost 5,500 paddlers. This was a new thing. We didn't have paddling on the river. Now people are paddling the river. I mean, how exciting is that? People are using this resource. It's something that they cherish. B-cycle. We are the place on the Mission Reach that everybody wants to come with their B-cycle. This is the kinds of the data that they've seen over the last couple of years on this project. Remember, we didn't finish the Mission Reach until 13, so just since then, look how much has already occurred with B-cycle usage. This is the average counts on the Mission Reach. This is the average daily counts on the top of the slide, and then total usage so far from 2012 to 2017, and you can tell it's ramping up. We see the slide, I see the data and it's ramping up. This is on the Mission Reach. Lots of organized events as well. This is Museum Reach. So again, just average daily counts at the lock and dam, and then what we're seeing total. So people are using this great amenity, and it's not, visitors, yes, they are there, but many of these people are locals, and they're coming from all over the city. You will see people from the north side on the Mission Reach. You'll see people from the south side on the Museum Reach. It is truly the spine that is connecting our community and our neighborhoods. Education, we're working with the River Foundation, but we've had an incredible amount of participation in our educational events. We've already mentioned World Heritage. This is, the Bexar County did a study on the economic impact of World Heritage, and this slide indicates what we are working to achieve, and the city is investing an incredible amount of money in the infrastructure in the buffer zone already through the general fund, and then there's much more in the bond. I think everyone has made a pitch for the bond, but again, there are so many wonderful things in this bond that are advancing these investments that we've already made. So expanding the vision, I call it. We've taken this river improvements project and had such a great success and great community involvement because of the River Oversight Committee. So what else is happening? Well, we have the Howard W. Peak Greenway Trail System. The City of San Antonio has a sales tax initiative where they have taken funding from a sales tax initiative and put it into a emerald necklace of trails using our creekways to connect communities even beyond the river. And this is led by Xavier and his team. And these trails have been hugely successful all over the city. So again, people are coming back to these natural resources, and I think this can also mean the same thing for Brackenridge Park. We're also doing San Pedro Creek, again, expanding that vision. What can we do next? 2 miles on San Pedro Creek. Going from this that you can see here, very historic creek, mind you. There's a lot of history here that I can't really go into today, but it's on our website, and I hope that you will go and seek this information out. But this is the creek today. Here's some more next to the Spanish Governor's Palace. This is what our creek looks like. Can you imagine what we can bring now that the county is investing a significant amount of money into this creek project, and of course the city in the bond also has some additional money to support San Pedro Creek. So you can see adding vegetation, using native vegetation for filtering of stormwater coming into the creek, creating and activating a site that today would just, you'd go over it and not even know that there was a creek there. We're adding an amphitheater next to the Alameda, a place again for activation, bringing people down, enjoying what these resources that we have in our downtown area, and using the creek to do that, bringing people back to water. And then as we get further south, reconnecting to the Mission Reach, you're going to see San Pedro Creek changing into something that you're familiar with the Mission Reach. We're also adding interpretive art and tile work that can tell the story of how significant the San Pedro Creek was in the history of our community. So these are going to be experiences that people are going to come down and not only enjoy the natural environment that we're creating, but also learn a little history about what's so important about our community. Also expanding the vision, also in the bond, is our improvements to Broadway. This is a huge thing now, and this goes right up the park. You know, we've got this Broadway street that many of us travel all the time, and it really is not the gateway to downtown that maybe it could be. So if you see on this dot all of those locations along Broadway that we've already invested in, the Whitty, the Botanical Gardens, the Zoo, Brackenridge Park, the Dewseum, all these great destinations. Now we need to link them all together. And Broadway and the vision that can be happening along Broadway can be a really great catalyst to what we're doing at Brackenridge Park. So again, you've got so much right there, and expanding the vision and connecting the dots, I think would be really amazing. So I just wanted to, from everything I've sort of said here, I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of leveraging. So what have we learned from what I've just talked about for the last few minutes on the river, and how can that apply to Brackenridge Park? And much of it's already been said, but I mean, obviously if people love the river and love our creeks, they're gonna love Brackenridge Park if we talk about the importance of how that river integrates into that park. We need to really talk loudly and strongly about the stewardship and the natural and cultural assets of this park. It's a very important aspect of what we have here. We also need to build on that momentum. We have made a lot of investment in all of those cultural institutions that I just mentioned. People go there all the time. People are coming from all over the community to go to the Whitty, and even more are gonna come. So how do we build on that and make those people come into the park and really excite themselves about all these other assets that are close to their one destination of the Whitty? They can pull into the park and see all the other things that are happening there. This is my pet peeve, and I'm glad I maybe have a minute I can talk about it. Okay, so we love the birds, right? I mean, they're great. I mean, everyone comes and feeds these ducks. But I can tell you, it's causing a serious problem in water quality in the park. We have some of the highest E. coli readings in the river in Brackenridge Park. And it's because we have now developed this great destination of bringing our families to the park and feeding the ducks. And that's great, except those ducks, what do they do after they eat that bread? They, you know, they've added a lot of bacteria. And then so if the people aren't there to feed the ducks, we're not really helping the ducks. There's not enough natural food in the park to support these ducks. So if all the people that fed them went away, these ducks would either have to leave or they'd die. I mean, let's face it, because there's not enough to feed these ducks. So I think we need to think about how to change that dynamic and educate people about balance, about how do we balance. This is a natural area. We have to make sure that people understand that. So we can talk about that later, but water quality, if you want people to interact, I know there's visions about swimming in the river again. Great. You can't swim if it's full of E. coli bacteria. So let's think about how we can work together, not only stormwater, but these birds and the ducks and feeding. So that's my soapbox. I'll get off of it. So I think that in conclusion, I do think we need to grow the membership of the Brackenridge Conservancy to make sure that it represents all park users. I think that we need to get real excitement about an interest in the park, and I know this was said earlier, we've got to get a presence. We have to start getting people there while all this investment's being made. Let's have some educational programming. Let's get out there and do walks and guided tours and all these wonderful things to activate the park so we bring people in to really understand and appreciate and get educated about all the great resources of this park. So with that, thank you very much.